you have issues hearing us or seeing us so that we understand what the experience at home is like. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And with that, let's open the meeting. Let's all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So used to muting during that time, so that, you know.
Yeah,
get the
we're in
meeting
sync.
right.
I know,
Yeah.
it's a little different, so,
Good, yeah.
all right. And we have one of our board members today is remote, so this is a true hybrid meeting now, right?
Hey, Bruce.
Good morning.
And I'm sure you're in a far better place. All right, so can I get a motion to approve the minutes of May 24th, 2021?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any amendments, changes, comments? No, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Minutes are approved. Next item on the agenda is the first select women's update. Basically, we continue to do extremely well on vaccinations. We're in the top 20 in the state, possibly top 10, depends on what numbers you look at each day. The town is rapidly moving back to, I think, normalization. We also lifted the, recently we lifted the mask mandate in town hall. So if you're fully vaccinated, you do not have to wear a mask when visiting town hall. But we do continue to recommend those who are not vaccinated to continue to wear a mask indoors. And that follows with state and CDC guidelines. Just want to highlight that a few weeks ago, the state of Connecticut launched a Park Connect program, a pilot program linking public transit to our state parks, including Hammonasset. And so there's going to be a Hammonasset shuttle that's already running daily, 7 days a week, and it stops at the commuter lot. It stops at the train station. It stops at the corner of Route 1 and Wall Street. And you'll see these little yard signs there right now that say bus stop. They're trying to get permanent ones in place. And then it goes to Middle Beach, right up to the circle near Middle Beach in Hammonasset State Park. So the word has not gotten out enough about this. And obviously we saw with the busy weekend, the more we can encourage people to use public transit, going to Hammonasset means less cars on our roads and people backing up into getting into our beaches. So get the word out to the community that this shuttle service is available. And this was also a collaborative effort that the state has been working on in the town of Madison. We had a lot of different people involved in town government, as well as with the EDC, including Erin's husband, Ryan, and our Beach and Rec Commission and the NPD. So we think it's a great opportunity for us to showcase Madison and also keep cars off the road. We'll talk in a minute.
Peggy, just before we move on, I just have a quick question. When Hammonasset fills up, will the shuttles still operate and bring people into the park, or will those stop as well?
No, the shuttles are going to continue to operate. When they say the park is full, it is not people, it's cars, it's parking. So they do not have a capacity limitation in terms of visitors. It's the parking lot.
Yeah, I was thinking the shuttle has to run to pull people out of there too, so.
Yeah, so they would continue to operate that.
So that's terrific news, right? We might want to consider, when we get our programmable signs online, to set some up strategically to remind people that if they get turned away from Hammonasset, that they can go to either the Madison or the Clinton pickup spots and get into the park that way, right?
Well,
so that they have another choice besides coming to East Wharf.
Well, what I'm encouraging is, I actually was communicating yesterday with the downtown transit, if we can get the gates guards hand out the schedules to all people visiting the park.
That's a great idea.
So that at least when they plan their next visit, if they have a horrible time parking, they've got the schedule and they say, hey, next time I can take this. So I think absolutely to your point, Bruce, the more, and also, it's more about awareness. And then part of it is also us, having our surf club gate people maybe tell people to go to the 79 commuter lot, for example, because that's an offshoot that they can't get into the surf club maybe, but they could go over the 79 lot. But
maybe not necessarily handing it out to everybody on the schedule, but maybe handing it out to people we turn away.
Well, that's what I'm talking
Yeah,
about,
yeah.
the people that we turn away.
Yeah.
So they just understand that there's other options.
Yeah.
So I think we do need to do a lot more promotion of this. I mean, the state is gonna be promoting it a lot more. It just launched 10 days ago, I think it was Memorial Day weekend. So, and there was very little ridership. I guess the Clinton trolley, which also goes to Hammonasset, did have see a bigger uptick. And they had more riders and we had hardly any, but I think it's just a promotional issue right now,
I
so.
think we might have been the only ones on the bus.
Yeah, I know. We were definitely. It was also
We were
pouring
the only
rain.
ones on the bus.
It was also
Yeah,
pouring
it
rain,
was
so, but to the spirit of that, I wanted to turn this over to Austin Hall to talk a little bit. So Austin is going to be taking the mantle from Scott Erskine officially July 1st, but he's been getting into the thick of it, so to speak, since the summer's kicked off for the rec department. So I thought he could give it a little update of kind of, I know there was a lot of problems on Sunday, and just talk through some of the key facts about what happened Sunday.
Thanks, Peggy. So yeah, I think it's important to, go over, why it was busy Sunday and sort of the circumstances behind that. So it was the real first, great beach weekend of the season. So everybody was, chomping at the bit to get out to all our town beaches and including Hammonasset. But on Sunday, which is the day in question here, we had a large lacrosse event on Strong Field. We had Little League on both Nelson Fields. Hammonasset was to capacity, so they shut their gates down. So with all of that compounding, it turned into a long wait time at the gates, which is going to happen when all of those things occur at the same time. Once youth sports are over, which is the end of June, that alleviates a lot of the pressure at the gate and a lot of the lines forming. I also think it's important to go over the stats from Sunday, just so you get an idea of, who was in the beach and which beaches they went to. So at Surf Club, this is just Sunday, there were 663 vehicles entered the Surf Club on Sunday. It was never full. We never shut the gate at the Surf Club at all. West Wharf, there was 105 vehicles entered, and they reached capacity around 1 o'clock. And East Wharf, 98 vehicles entered. 120 were turned away, and they also reached capacity at around 1 o'clock. And then for day passes.
I was just gonna interrupt real
Yeah,
quick. The key issue there, they all reached capacity around 1 o'clock. Hammonasset, it was actually around 12:30 that Hammonasset closed its gates. So you can see that surge factor that we know always happens, so. Go ahead, Austin.
Exactly. And then as far as day passes sold, so we sold 24 resident day passes. So that's a Madison resident just coming for the day. They buy their $10 pass at the gate. We also had 16 resident prepaid passes. So they bought a day pass prior to coming during the week sometime. And then we sold 72 non-resident passes, which are all sold at the Surf Club only, which helps keep the capacity at our other beaches under control, because Surf Club's our largest beach. It has the concession stand, the playground, and everything else that people want on a beach day. So that's the most we've ever sold since we've been keeping track of that.
Austin, do you limit the number of
Yeah, just interrupt me loud. Austin, hold a second.
do you limit the number of non-resident passes sold? I know that was sort of a hot topic on social media.
Yes, each day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, there is a limit to the non-resident passes being sold each of those days.
Is it by beach or is it a total? What is the number, do you know?
Total number, so 75 per day.
We're knocking on the door.
We're kind of keeping it a little fluid in the sense that if the, parking lot is completely empty and we're stopping people from entering, if we reach that 75, I think we want to maintain a little bit of flexibility, but clearly on a day like Sunday, we would have stopped at 75. We just got in underneath that number. So I think, and we based that on previous history. If you go back historically, we've never done that amount in a day. Actually, we looked at the data at 2018, 2017, and we really don't sell that many non-resident passes. So we kind of picked that number and also kind of eyeballed it based on a percentage of our total parking spots. But clearly this trend is just still getting bigger. People are just really using Connecticut beaches now. And I think last year it was an explosion because everybody discovered them. So, but I think that one of the key takeaways though is this perception of out-of-towners, that out-of-towners that were there were either there to participate in sporting events and they're our guests.
Yeah.
And we asked
Yeah.
them to come to Madison, or it was 72 out of, the 600 odd parking spots we have across all our beaches. So, it was a vast majority of Madison people that were visiting our beaches this weekend.
That's great.
So,
Austin, I had a question. Your slide shows that the tickets were sold at the gate. Is that at the gate or at the office at Surf Club?
So the non-resident daily passes are sold only at the gate at Surf Club. And the day passes are sold at the gate. If you're purchasing a year-round beach pass or a summer beach pass, that's sold at the office.
Thank you.
Did that, I know, I was reading some of the commentary again on social media. I should probably stay away from it, but there was a fair amount of commentary about people waiting in line coming into the surf club, and that a big contributing factor was gate sales, that they were doing, paperwork was occurring at the gate as opposed to, maybe somewhere else to expedite the line. Is there any way we can expedite cars coming in? There was a lot of discussion about 2 lanes, which clearly we can't do, but.
yeah, I know.
So yeah, we've talked about that, but I think the reason why the line was so long is we have people, non-residents coming from Hammonasset being turned away. They have to be, told and explain the policies and procedures at the gate. They decide whether or not they want to stay and pay the daily fee to come in. There's
Is there a
guests that are
sign?
coming in.
Austin, is there a sign
I'm
like,
sorry?
is there a sign that like if you're pulling down the Surf Club Road where you could see all of that in advance instead of having to go to the gate and getting it explained?
Right now, there's
Or
not,
could there? Yeah.
we could easily, we put a sign, which we did this
Intersection.
last year, we did sandwich boards. The other thing is we're waiting for our emergency boards, which we wanted to have like flashing, like, $40 a day for non-residents, limited sales. We want to put that at the corner of Route 1. Problem is, once they go down that West
you're
Wharf
stuck.
Road,
Yeah.
you're just, and so we do need more, so our emergency boards are still not arrived, so we're hoping to use those. We could put like a sandwich board kind of thing on the corner of East Wharf and West Wharf, or West Wharf and Surf Club. Yeah, and we did have something, notices last year, so we can look at doing that in terms of providing information. And then also what's nice about the new signs is they're remote, they're Wi-Fi enabled. So we could say Surf Club full for non-residents, once we hit that 75 and have that on Route 1. So there's different options in terms of signage. I mean, I will say there was also, Austin, to your point, the sports, you also have people coming in and saying, where do I park? They have to put the thing in there. You got to instruct them, so
It sounds
it's
like
just
it was,
time, it's just time consuming. Yeah.
it sounds like it was a perfect storm.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was. I think we've talked about, I know people have asked about why are we selling them at the gate? Well, then you have people going into the park.
Yeah.
Right, and then they have to go to the office, you have to park somewhere, so kind of, yeah,
People are gonna go get them.
right, and then they're gonna get them, and,
Right.
and I know there were some ideas about mobile sales and advanced sales, and we had looked into that with our existing software at one point, but then we got into this issue about, that means everything would have to be mobile, because otherwise how are you gonna track the number of non-resident passes that you sell, right? You're gonna have 2 different systems going, so I think it would be really hard to do that. I think you either gotta go advanced purchase only, or you go at the gate only. To have the 2 mixed would just create a little bit more confusion, I think, but we are continuing to troubleshoot, obviously ideas are always welcome and, we're working on it. This was also, I think to Scott's point, one of those perfect storm kind of situations with sporting events as well. And I think we only have one person at the gate, Austin, right? Normally we would have two, but because of, school's not out, and a lot of these kids had senior activities and things like that going on. We usually have two people staffing that gate, and we couldn't get staffing for the weekend, so.
I have one other question, Austin. When we sell non-resident passes, do we collect data on like where people are coming from? Like when they buy one, do we get their information? I'm just curious. I would just be curious to kind of see where we're attracting people from.
I believe we do, and I can get that data for you. Yeah. Yep.
Well, and we had talked, Austin, this is prior to when you got involved, that the issue is because they're using a credit card, but we can't keep that data. So then we were like, do we report it? But now you have another time issue at the date, right?
I don't think it's essential. I just think it would be interesting.
I think it
Even
would
from
be
like
good
an
too.
economic development standpoint, just to
Yeah.
kind of get a sense of where people are coming from in the state.
I think it would be really good information. So I know we talked about it and there was concern about getting because you have to get, and I thought, well, what if we just ask them their zip code? But that's another data thing that we'd have to track, but maybe on non-busy days, at least we could do that to get an idea of just getting people's zip codes. I think it would be really helpful to know.
A couple of thoughts, Austin. One, I think the signs that we put up should be as close to that southbound journey on Route 1 from Hammonasset as possible. So that, and maybe a series of signs in case they missed the first one. So that well before they hit the downtown, they understand what the cost is and all of that. And then maybe we should consider the car rental return model. They have, when you return a car at the airport, they have people roving with small devices that take those cars in and back into the system, do receipts, take credit cards, do whatever they need to do. I think for the price of a tablet and not a tile, but one of those little square plug-in credit card readers, we could send somebody down the line of cars, and the cars that don't have a Madison Beach sticker could, they could knock on the window and say, hey, if you want to buy a pass, it's $40. If you don't, turn around in the next, available space, and hand them the pieces of paper or whatever they need. So when they get to the gate check, they just go right through. I don't think that's a terribly hard technology issue for us. It is a person or two to do, but it can sort of pre-qualify those cars that are stuck in line and speed up moving them through.
I think
we could do that.
Yeah, we did look at that. I think there was a concern about the cell phone reception and reliability of doing that down there, but I think it's worth looking at again. Because I think you're absolutely right. The other issue was that we talked about this, and I know Austin was not participating because we had these issues last summer, now you've created a situation, you're gonna get people pulling out of the line and doing U-turns, which it creates issues with traffic control. So there have been some concerns about that. So if you have somebody going down, now all of a sudden you got all these people saying, I'm getting out of here, or I don't want to do this. And then instead of going through and doing a safe loop to exit the park, they're going in, they're going to cut out in the middle of the road. So, but I think it's worth us exploring that again. Austin, you could talk to Scott again, because we did look into it a little bit, but not in depth. And we do need to test it out with the cell phone reception too.
Yeah, I mean, I think anything to reduce that car
Yeah,
line, whatever we can do.
You can hit people before they go down, so you
Yeah, that's the thing, getting it, if you can get them at that intersection, yeah. So maybe that would be the better alternative, is trying to nail them there. Hey, if you're looking to have them buy a pass. I don't know about staffing there, we have to look at this country club property and stuff, but those are all things that are worth exploring, so. So a lot of thinking going on, although ironically, last year, because we did not allow non-residents on the weekends, the backups weren't so bad once word got out, you know, in the papers and stuff about beaches, you know, being closed to non-residents. But this year, obviously, it's a different story, and we'll continue to see an uptick in people interested in visiting our beaches, so. Okay, so that was, everybody good on that? Yep.
That was a long conversation on that topic.
It is a, literally. Okay, so I think next item on the agenda is, thank you, Austin. And I guess you'll be hanging on too, right, for the trash discussion later, right? He's getting trial by fire here. So, next item on the agenda is selectmen, comments. So any, selectmen comments?
I've got a few.
Do it.
Oh, okay. Okay, so first I want to, I think we've talked about this in the past, but I want to restate the Exchange Club is doing a benefit, and it's all of the Exchange Club money raised stays in Madison, stays in the community. They are doing the healing fields. This is a commemoration of the 20th anniversary of 9/11. And it involves placing as many flags as possible on the town green from September 3rd to September 14th. The important call out here is that in order to make this happen, they need people to participate before the end of June, because they have to place their order for the flags at the very beginning of July. So while this event doesn't happen for a few months, the time to act is really today. So please go to the Madison Exchange Club website and consider purchasing a flag in memory of somebody in your family, somebody close to you, or just in general to those who have given their life in service. I think it's a worthy cause. They're an extraordinary benefactor to the town and contribute greatly to all kinds of local organizations, including the Madison Food Pantry and Madison Youth and Family Services. So I commend to you that that's a worthwhile $40. And then you get the flag at the end if you'd like it. The other thing that I want to bring up is part two of an issue or a notion that I brought up a few months ago, and that is around the legalization of cannabis. Last night, the Senate voted to approve the legalization of cannabis. The governor has already issued a statement in support of this law. And it now goes to the House, where I expect it will pass quite readily. So I think the time really is now for us to commission an ad hoc committee of community stakeholders to begin to understand the law and its potential impact on Madison. So I'm requesting that we have on our next meeting agenda a charge for discussion for an ad hoc advisory and at least a preliminary identification of likely stakeholders in the community that we can discuss. And in the interim time, invite people who either believe they are a stakeholder or would like to help with this to reach out to the Board of Selectmen and indicate their interest. I think there are parts of this that will phase in July 1st, 2021. So in less than a month. And it looks like the entire phase in is in early 2023. So I think that's for the ultimate licensing and selling and all of that of this. But when I first brought this up, I thought we had quite a bit of time before passage, and it has moved through the legislature much more quickly than I thought. So I believe it is a topic now that we should take up as a Board of Selectmen and as a town.
No, I absolutely think we have to prepare for this, and I think in many different ways. There's the, issues about community health, youth, and then there's just regulatory issues at the local level that we need to think through about how this is going to impact local businesses, zoning, all kinds of things. And so I think it's worth adding that to our agenda, which is end of June, right? We're still in June. It's all a blur, but I'm happy to put it on there, and we'll figure out how we tackle this going forward and prepare ourselves. I think there is some time in terms of actually how it's going to get rolled out, but I think it's.
Can I make one
worthy.
comment though?
Yeah.
Or one just.
Yeah.
I like where you're going with this,
Yeah.
Bruce, but I guess one thought as I think about, obviously I sit as the liaison to Madison Youth and Family Services, and they've spent a lot of time thinking about this particular issue. I know they've actually put forward, I think, it was a proclamation, a resolution, some recommendation to the state
Right.
that was sent a while back,
Yeah.
maybe a year ago or 2 years ago now. But it might make sense to have Madison Youth and Family Services come and talk to us as a board as a first step about what they're seeing and implications of it, maybe prior to getting into an actual charge, because that body in itself may already have some initial thinking.
No, I agree we should leverage that, but I think that is one component, but then there's also just the regulatory piece of the town. And so it's multifaceted. This is, effectively going to be kind of like alcohol when you think of all the different things about our, businesses, so I would agree with that. And maybe the first step is just to have them come and talk about, well, since they've done a lot more work in this area. I mean, we can
Just helps to educate us. I think.
No, I agree. That's a good point as well. So we'll figure out, we can all talk offline and figure out how it would work for the first meeting and what we want to, but I think, Bruce, you're suggesting like a separate commission to pull all these different groups together and have an overall.
So like we've both said, this has a lot of implications beyond sort of the social public health impact and the impact on youth. There is planning and zoning, there's law enforcement. Certainly the school district is going to be a stakeholder in this discussion. There is a public health and a public health education component to it. There's an economic development component to it, or at least a business community component to it. There is I don't know how the right way to say it, but what is the mood of the town with regards to retail establishments in Madison? There is the cultivation aspect of it. So it's really not a discussion about the pros and cons or social impacts of marijuana on children. And I think that's always a good perspective to get from Youth and Family Services. And I absolutely want them to be part of the stakeholder group. But it, like you said, Peggy, is a little bit of a separate conversation that runs in parallel to it. The education part runs in parallel to us beginning to take proactive action to make sure that we're prepared when this happens. And it does look, the legislation is over 300 pages. I did a really quick scan. It does look like the municipality is going to have the ability to vote yes, no, or limit the number of businesses. What we won't do is we won't be deciding who as individual businesses or individuals have the licenses to do that. That authority will stay with the state, and they're creating a new commission to evaluate those licenses as if I read the legislation correctly and if it all passes through as written.
More to talk about. Obviously, it's going to be a big topic as we move forward. I mean, the positive is that many states have already been through this process, so we can learn and maybe look at what towns in Massachusetts are doing and how they're tackling some of these things, our neighboring state.
They're a little ahead of us on
A
this.
little
right?
bit, yeah. So, any other liaison comments or no? Good. Okay. Okay. Moving on to citizens' comments.
Gus Horvath has his hand raised.
Okay. Gus, you're not here in person. Abby, can you change the view shows? Not that. Oh,
Gus, when you unmute,
Mute. Have you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, it was on mute. Very interesting discussion so far, and what I want to bring up is probably considered mundane compared to what you already have. Item 10 on your agenda, the American Rescue Plan funding. At the last Board of Finance meeting, there was some discussion about taking a look at how we were going to spend the money that was coming to us, has already come to us, and is coming to both the town and the Board of Education. And a number of things were thrown out. And what I'm concerned about is that just as I have certain things that I think that money should be spent on, individual members of the Board of Selectmen and Board of Finance should also have that. But I think we have a plan in place that might direct us as to how to follow through on this. And this is the facility study that has just been completed. And I would suggest that we take a look at the two components of this $20 to $25 million that we might be talking about that would be available for the town and the Board of Education for improvements of their buildings and services. That we do a study to determine what would be the cost benefit of them, because certain things are favored, but in order to put them in a priority as to what the benefits of the entire community would be, we need to do some cost benefit study. And I would suggest that of the total dollars we have, that 50% of it be kept in the rainy day fund. That exceeds the 10% of the Board of Finance's policy, but we don't know what else is coming down the line. So I would suggest say half of that. And then we consider the other half. The Board of Finance and the Board of Selectmen has already started in that by the special appropriations you've made, for instance, for the equipment for the Public Works Department and for some of the other special appropriations. But I think what we might want to consider is, again, putting them in the order of priority, determining what would be the benefit over the next 5, 10, 15 years by doing A instead of B. Should we be putting more money into the pension plan because we already are on the basis of paying down the shortfall over the 25 or 30 year period? Is that too long? These are all the questions, some of the questions that we should be asking ourselves before we commit the funds. So I, as usual, I'm sure it's no surprise, I will be preparing some recommendations to the Board of Selectmen for their meeting in June, and we'll be copying the Board of Finance, Board of Selectmen. I will be preparing them for the Board of Finance. I haven't had breakfast yet, so please excuse me, I haven't had a cup of coffee yet. So I'll be preparing it for the Board of Finance and copying the Board of Selectmen. And I hope you'll take a look at it, and whether you agree with some of the specifics, I would hope you would agree with the general concepts. So can I be excused to go have breakfast?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, very enthusiastic to get rid of me, huh? Thank you.
No, no.
Bye for
You're the
now.
hardest working resident in town, Gus. We
Hey,
need you focused.
hey, Murph. Yeah, okay. I'll get even with you one of these days. Bye for now, and thank you for listening to me.
I'm just gonna point out that we're actually gonna be having a special meeting just to talk about the American Rescue Plan funds. I think it's gonna be either Monday or Tuesday next week. I think we're still trying to confirm the time. So today's discussion is gonna be very short, but we'll have a more detailed discussion about the amount of money, potential uses, and process. So I'm sure we can expect you to join us for that.
Okay.
Any other public comment? Citizens
no
comments?
one else.
Okay. Okay, all right, great, thank you. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is discuss and take action to proclaim June as Pride Month in the town of Madison. And we actually have a proclamation, and I think we have some guests who are here. Do we have any guests to talk about this?
Yep, I'm gonna trust in
Oh, okay. Try to move Justin. So maybe should I just do a motion and then read the proclamation and then have them talk? Or- Okay, we'll do that. Can I get I'm going to get a motion to approve the following proclamation. Whereas the town of Madison, this is a bit long, but I think it's all very important points that we want to make. Whereas the town of Madison is committed to provide an inclusive and welcoming community for all, including the LGBTQ+ community. And whereas the uprising at Stonewall Inn that started on June 28, 1969, sparked a liberation movement for the LGBTQ+ community and was a call to action that continues to inspire us to live up to our nation's promise of equality, liberty, and justice for all. And whereas the United States Supreme Court ruled in June 2015 that same-sex couples can marry nationwide, establishing a new civil right in our country. And whereas former President Barack Obama designated the first national monument to LGBTQ+ rights in June 2016, honoring the LGBTQ+ community's long-term presence and struggle for equality across our nation. And whereas our current president, Joseph Biden, proclaimed June 2021 as Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, and Queer Pride Month, and called upon the people of the United States to recognize the achievements of the LGBTQ+ community, to celebrate the great diversity of the American people, and to wave their flags of pride high. And whereas all members of the Madison community, including those who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, or questioning, intersex, and asexual, have the right to feel safe, not be discriminated against, and to live without the threat of harassment. And whereas supporting Madison's LGBTQ+ community aligns with the town's objective to co-create a more inclusive and equitable community that promotes unity and honors diversity. And whereas the LGBTQ+ community has made great strides, however, work remains in order to achieve full equality, inclusion, and acceptance. Now, therefore, we, the Board of Selectmen, do hereby unanimously declare June 2021 as LGBTQ+ month in the town of Madison, and order the flying of the pride flag outside Madison Town campus on the 28th of June 2021 to honor and commemorate the ongoing civil rights movement of the LGBTQ+ community. Done this 8th day of June 2021 in the town of Madison. All in favor? Or no, discussion?
So moved, so moved.
Okay.
Peggy, can I suggest that the record show, in the spirit of this proclamation, that the board unanimously moved and seconded this proclamation?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So all, yeah, okay.
Wait, now we have to vote.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. That was like the cart before the horse.
Yeah, I know. No, and I think that
Presumptive, weren't you?
we do have some guests here that I'm sure would like to say some words, but I just want to make a comment that I think one of the most important statements in this is about supporting our community. And our objective as a town to co-create a more inclusive and equitable community that promotes unity and honors diversity. And I think that really is the heart of why we wanted to do this for this month. And I think we've seen that a lot in our town, especially as we've gone through the challenges of COVID, that we come together, no matter who we are, what color we are, what our, backgrounds are, that we've been able to work together as a community to get through this crisis. So with that, I would love to turn it over. We have Justin Ziegler and Reverend Heather Arkovich. Is that how you pronounce your name?
Yes.
Okay, great. Who is part of the Madison Diversity and Inclusion Group, and would love for you to say a few words.
Great. So hi everybody. If we've never met before, my name is Justin Ziegler. I work at the First Congregational Church here in town. I am part of the Madison Diversity and Inclusion Committee, and I just have a few words to say, and then I'll pass it over to my colleague, Reverend Dr. Heather Arkovich. So many words, and you deserve every one of them. Pride Month is for young people who may be scared of what they're learning about themselves and not knowing where to go or who to turn to, but being able to see places where they can imagine themselves. Pride Month is for those coming out and learning how to integrate identity at any age, not always perfectly, but doing so at their own pace and in their own way. Pride Month is for those of us who have done the hard work of coming out. and simply want a space and time to celebrate all that we have accomplished with our loved ones. Pride Month is for some to sit back and cheer on their friends. It's for some to walk, dance, march, or laugh. It's about community. And I am very grateful to be able to recognize this in the place that I call home. Thank you very much.
Justin.
Thank you, Justin.
Thanks, Justin. And thank you all very much. As a new resident of Madison, my partner and I just moved here 2 weeks ago from
Wow.
New Haven.
Welcome.
Thank you. I just started serving North Madison Congregational Church about 1.5 years ago, right before COVID started. It's been wonderful to see the things happening in Madison as a queer clergy person of an open and affirming congregation, to see Madison's first Pride, to see the conversations that are happening among our youth, to see rainbow flags all over town on our businesses, I think is a wonderful witness for the kind of place Madison is and wants to be. And that's a big deal. I'm a pastor who served a church where a young gay man died by suicide. And so I'm aware of how important it is that communities be openly welcoming for the safety of our youth, as Justin said. So thank you for that. And also, thank you for your support of Madison diversity and inclusion and the work that we're doing in the community. Pride was started by a Black trans woman. And as we see these conversations about color and other ways of being human beings in our community, honestly, it makes the whole place safer for everyone to live a vibrant life. And that matters a lot. So thank you very, very much for this unanimous witness. I'm really proud of you and us today.
Well, we're glad we're able to make these types of statements in this day and age, and we're grateful for all your service to our community. We will be having a flag raising ceremony on the 28th. We need to figure out the time, so part of that is availability, but it'll be right up in front of Town Hall, and so more details will come out about that as we raise the Pride flag to commemorate the Stonewall uprising on June 28th. So appreciate all the other thing I did want to mention too is, I think it would be worthy of our town formalizing a more formal committee for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think that's something that would be a great thing for this board to take on. We've created a lot of committees, so I think it was one of, on the list always, but I think this reminds us that there's always work to be done, and by formalizing your group or maybe creating a separate committee or something like that, that would allow town to continue to reflect on and find ways to improve our inclusion and openness here is a good thing for the community. So I leave that, Justin, you and I have talked a little bit about that, and so maybe we can put that on the horizon here to start forming a more formal committee as an official board and commission of town.
Chairman Justin.
Yeah, I've never been called that. I've been called many things. Never.
Heather had a lot of things in front of her name, so there's yours.
Yeah. No, I love the conversation on the horizon. I love the, figuring out what that best looks like for our community, and how best to make sure the right voices and people are involved in that conversation. And I'm excited to continue that and to continue to evolve that into something that continues to impact our town and just grow the vibrancy of who we are as Madison.
Well said.
Great.
Yeah, just a reflection. I'm pretty passionate about this area too, and listening to the words coming through the proclamation. This to me reflects the type of inclusive, caring community that we want it to be and we aspire it to be. Madison is a pretty amazing place, and I think we've come a long way and we have a long way to go. And this is to me a wonderful step in a very, very positive direction here. So thank you for helping us with this.
Always happy to help.
All right, well, good. Well, thank you. Any other board comments? No? All right, great. All right, well, thank you guys. We'll see more of you and I'll get out more details about the 28th of June, okay? All right, moving on to, I'll sign it. Next item on the agenda is discuss and take action to approve the reappointment of Joseph Oslander to the South Central Connecticut Regional Water Authority Representative Policy Board for a term to expire June 30th, 2024.
So move. Second.
Okay. I don't know if there's any additional discussion, but on that, I think that's a reappointment, right? Yeah. Thank you for your service, Joe Oslander, and all in favor of the appointment, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is discuss and take action to approve line item transfers totaling $27,932.37.
So move.
Second.
Okay, these are end of the year adjustments that we always go through, cleaning house as we get to the end of the fiscal year. So any board questions or comments? No. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. Item number 9, discuss potential funding needs for public safety resources for the July 4th community events. Did we get, this was basically a follow-on to our discussion in May about, having the fireworks and parade. We thought we might need to do some modifications for those events, for crowd control and things like that. Did we get a public safety budget? yet?
No, but
Okay.
Sam and Jack are both on the Zoom. I can add them as panelists and they can tell you if they're anticipating.
If they're gonna be into, okay, great. And I think this was just meant to give a heads up that, we might have to spend some more money. Always.
So you waiting for me?
Yep. Okay, I don't know, Sam, if you and Chief Drum had the opportunity to kind of nail this down yet. Do you expect, this is just a conversation, do you expect to see changes to how you would manage these year's events? And would there be additional resources needed for that?
So I think the chief could speak better to it, but I think he's gonna probably need some more people for traffic. Since we're not having the shuttle buses this year, I think there's gonna be a lot of pedestrian traffic. As far as the fire side goes, I think we're pretty well set. I don't think there's gonna be much different.
And I know that you're having another planning meeting tomorrow, right? So.
Yeah, tomorrow afternoon, we're having another planning meeting.
Welcome, Chief. So,
Good morning.
Good morning. So this was just kind of an update on, the 4th of July events, and if you anticipate additional resources being needed for that. If there's been a change in thinking, we talked about this in May, so.
I think we have a couple more meetings ahead of us. We're meeting tomorrow. Going to look at what we're trying to most certainly maximize safety and minimize inconvenience to the community. We probably will use additional officers from even other agencies to help us, particularly on the highway exit ramps. That would include some state police officers, as we do almost every year. Other than that, we'll probably have our hands more around what's going on probably by next week.
How does that work, Jack? When we bring on state resources, do we incur any of that cost, or do we share the cost, or is that state funds?
Yes, we do. There is an additional cost we paid. Their overtime rate for their officer vehicle. Of course, it's similar to what we do. We charge a vendor for our services for police coverage. It involves the vehicle, the insurances, the time and a half for the officer. So their rate is a little bit higher than what we charge, very similar to what Clinton or Guilford has charged us in the past for use of other officers.
Thank you.
So are we gonna be allowing the same parking at the surf club, but no shuttle? Is that the thinking, or have you not decided on that?
This is very fluid right now. We're still trying to have some decisions made as to best allow the public in to view the event and how we're going to maximize safety while doing that. So that's another discussion, which probably will be with your board shortly.
I know there were a lot of discussions about the shuttle buses normally are donated, I think, by the bus company, and they just said that their drivers felt uncomfortable doing those types of services. And so then the discussion was, well, does that make the problem worse by not having the shuttle buses, or does it help it? But I think part of this is getting ahead of it too, and messaging, as we get closer to the date. But this is what Jack and his team is going to figure out. They'll make a recommendation. Yeah, clarify.
Yeah, I think it's going to make it worse with not having the shuttle buses. I think you're going to be a lot more pedestrian traffic trying to walk down there. Maybe we could offer, so they normally donate their time and their buses. Maybe we could offer them some money if it changes their position on it, but I'm not so sure.
And we have to remember that we're going to have a lot of people gathering at one, to attend the fireworks. And then, of course, as they exit, we generally have anywhere from 8,000 to 10,000 people at any given beach at one time, kind of congregating within arm's length of each other. So these are some of the concerns, obviously, as we come out of post-COVID, as we transition out. But we're not at this point enforcing mask use because it's not on the table anymore. So I think we're trying to find our way through this to make it a great event and maximize safety for everybody that attends.
Okay, so there'll be more to come on this perhaps, and we have another board meeting towards the end of the month that they can give us kind of the final plan. And I think also just to note for the public watching is that as soon as we have the details nailed down, we will start putting everything on the website and, get that message out there on social media so people understand, where you can park, what we're allowing, all that stuff. So, and most people don't even look at this stuff until 2 days before the event. So, we'll just have to really be strong about getting that information out there. So, okay, great, guys. We'll see you again then probably at the next board meeting for that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks. Next item on the agenda is a quick update on the American Rescue Plan. I think I mentioned earlier that I did put a slide in here because I always have slides, but it's really kind of the same slide that I used last time. We did couple of things happened since
There you go.
So a couple things we found out. We should be getting the money now by June 23rd. The funds are actually available in the state of Connecticut. The state will be releasing the funds within the next 2 weeks to the towns. We will only be receiving 50% of the money, and then another 50% 12 months later. We got the final numbers from OPM, which, so the numbers that are in that little box are the final numbers that we received, we'll be receiving, both the town and the county allocation. And the long-term recovery committee has been working on going through a short list of possible projects that we'd like to get launched soon. And so the idea is our board having a special meeting to talk about some of these shortlisted projects just to get jumpstart the program once the money is available. And then there really is going to be a longer conversation over the summer and into the fall about the bigger plan for use of these funds. And the public will certainly have an opportunity to give input on this. We're still trying to figure out what the approval process is going to be because we've never dealt with this before. And I've been in conversations with the chair of the Board of Finance about that and how the Board of Finance will certainly be involved in the process. And so we're looking at all that right now. It's still fairly ambiguous. I wish I could give definitive answers on what qualifies. I think as you read the documents, it is very restricted. It is very much about tying it to COVID improvements. There's kind of a lens that you have to look at everything when you look at these projects. So we kind of had a lot of ideas in the beginning, and as we kind of work our way through this, we realized, okay, that's probably not going to qualify. What we haven't heard yet is that if there's an opportunity to pre-screen. So the last thing we want to do is go out and spend millions of dollars and then have them say, sorry, this doesn't qualify. So that's another thing. We're still trying to get more information from the state about that and from the US Treasury. CCM has been working on this. We had our first webinar just on Thursday about this, and a lot of towns are struggling right now about approvals and qualifications and all that. So this will be a longer term discussion, but there are a few smaller things that I think are kind of home runs that we think we want to just get moving forward on, and that's what we'll talk about all of this at our special meeting. And then, and I know long-term recovery is meeting tomorrow. It's going to be a very short list for approval. There's more on the board because we had a longer list, and now we're like, I don't know. Some of these things seem a little bit questionable still. So So more discussion on this, and then the special meeting, like I said, will be early next week, once we get the time nailed down, that we can dig into this in more detail. Any questions right now? No? Okay, there'll be more
More to
time to
come.
talk, right? Okay, so we can move on then to the next item on the agenda, which is discuss trash removal bid process and proposed management plan.
Propose
So,
we make this a standing agenda item since this is about the 15th time we've talked about it.
trash or American Rescue Plan?
All the above, probably.
This is, no, the trash. This is just our perennial cross to bear these days that our trash stinks. Nobody wants to take it away.
Well, so Scott Erskine is here and Austin, I think, is here, or remote, right? Okay, great. So I think just stepping back, just to remind the public and the board that last year we got a very sizable increase in the bid for the trash contract, and we only had one bidder. And so we said, okay, let's just sign the contract for a year and then figure something else out. And we also wanted to go to a bigger RFP. We launched an RFP earlier in the spring and had literally no respondents initially. What we're learning is that for some reason, trash services don't use a lot of the state bidding lists. And so then we cobbled together a list and did a second launch of the RFP and went directly to as many trash companies in the area that we could nail down. And we did get 2 responses back. What is by and far, the bids came back very large. And the biggest component of that is serving the downtown. It is an incredibly labor intensive process. We have far too many trash bins downtown, to be honest. There are multiple trash bins spread out when really the vast concentration of the trash is in 2 areas. And so the way we have it laid out, and also the 7-day a week, twice a week during the summer kind of cycle, is just very expensive. So Scott talked to his building and grounds crew, and Austin did, and what we ended up doing was decided that our staff is going to be taking over the downtown piece, and we've come up with a plan for that. And we're stripping out all the other stuff to an outside contractor. And we pulled out for downtown our own staff to do it. So I don't know, Austin or Scott, if either one of you want to talk a little bit about what the thinking is here. I know you love to talk about trash stuff.
What we've come up with is that, as Peggy alluded to, that we will, as far as our staff, we will take care of the downtown. We're responding to the internet calls from the big delis, which we have, the big deli stations. And what we anticipate doing is going with the American Rescue Plan. We want to try to buy 6 more stations for the composting or the compacting stations. So staff will be notified on their phone when the station is a product getting close to being full. So we can respond in a more effective way instead of getting a call saying this trash bin is overflowing and why can't somebody pick it up? So I think it will be more efficient that way. We will go in during the morning and then throughout the day if certain stations fill up. We're also looking at creating a depository for one of our biggest problems is pizza boxes. People are going and getting pizza to go, and with the pandemic, they were eating it at the courtyard, right next to Grand, and then there was no place to put their pizza box. So we're trying so they were jamming it into trash containers and it jams the compactor. So the compactor wasn't full, it was restricted because it would not compress pizza box. So we have a separate box. When that box gets filled up, what we want to try to do is talk to the business owners saying, this is coming directly from your store. Can you empty it and put it in your trash dumpster?
For the pizza.
For the-
boxes.
for the pizza
Right,
box.
just having a special, there's
Special
exactly,
box.
and we actually might even just make one, we kind of look.
Right.
You know,
We're
Boston
looking
did some
at just
research
different
and,
designs, but.
Literally a pizza box.
yeah, you just stop, well, but it was kind of like, that was one of the problems. We have two of these big bellies, but the rest are all these small wooden containers scattered throughout. Most of those wooden containers are hardly ever filled up,
They're
it's
trays,
just, it's
they're
all.
28 gallons.
So we're gonna look at consolidating, and then we'd like to purchase, and we'll talk a little bit more when we talk about the contract award, some additional big bellies using the savings that we're gonna see now, because we budgeted for a certain amount, and now if we pull out the downtown, we actually have some savings now in that account, buying some of the big bellies. And then our guys feel like with the notifications and stuff, they go downtown to water the plants every morning, so this would be part of their routine and just add it on. We don't need a special truck. I think they felt that, you know, because Guilford had done this and they bought an actual garbage truck, but these guys feel like with the compacting and everything, it's easy to just open up and put it in a pickup truck, or not pickup truck, whatever they, yeah.
Pick up.
Yeah, okay. And so they feel confident that they can take care of this more easily, and then there's just more accountability, because the problem with the vendor is that, you know, it could take hours before they're gonna get down there. There were a lot of complaints that things weren't getting picked up properly. And so at least now the town is in control. It was perceived that we were in control and the complaints would come to the town, but the reality is we were relying on a you know, third party, and now we will be responsible for it, for the downtown. So
What about the surf club? There's also, I've seen on social media.
Yeah.
Comments about
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
about- not to spring that on me, but I mean, how is that addressed?
Well,
That's a dumpster, right?
those are the town contracts out to the provider for dumpster service. We changed many years ago, to carry in, carry out service, where, again, you don't even have to carry it out. You have your picnic, you take your trash to the dumpster. You don't have to take it with you, just take it to the dumpster. Because what we were having is, we have these 55-gallon drums that were our trash bins. And we're driving through the picnic area where kids are running around, they don't pay attention to where they're going. So it's a dangerous situation. And then if we didn't empty them all out by the end of the night, you had dogs, raccoons, skunks, tipping everything, so the trash got spent all over the place. So we have barrels that are strategically placed, like coming off the beach. There's barrels at the top of the stairs. So if you're coming off the beach, you can deposit your trash there, okay? But all in the picnic area, the dumpsters are right there. When you're going to your car, we have both dumpsters right in the big gravel lot. I mean, just take it with you. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's similar to Chatfield Hollow. I mean, they have dumpster stations.
So it's not that there's adequate space to put the trash, it's that people aren't actually.
They're not picking up after themselves.
So the dumpsters are not overflowing.
Yeah. I mean,
there was one issue with when they were doing construction down there a few weeks ago, and there was a construction dumpster that, because they were doing work on the bathrooms, and then people were just dumping food and everything
so
onto
the
the
seagulls and
dumpster
the crows.
or and that's where that happened, but that's been removed, that was taken care of, and the seagulls get to that stuff.
Seagulls love it.
One thing, I think one thing that the idea is the trash cans near the beaches should be for small things, right? And so maybe what we do is look at a different type of container.
Not for,
Yeah.
not for broken chairs.
Right, exactly, versus, well, and also large, party, bags and stuff, so, and then the dumpster is for the picnics and the large scale kind of thing, so maybe we look at, smaller containers that have restricted lids, so it's just for like your soda can or your, your wrapper from N&J
Yeah,
versus like
the other thing
your
that
entire,
Is
barbecue.
there signage actually on the cans themselves, like for larger items, please put in the?
Well, there's no signs on.
They're just
it.
basic that are, the
The
cans that
blue
are out there,
cans.
but yeah, they're just basic, so it kind of is inviting to people, oh, it's right there, yeah.
Well, the
Yeah,
other-
we're on top, yeah.
The other initiative we're gonna be bringing about is the park facility monitors. As they're walking through, they're gonna have trash bags with them.
Oh, good.
So it'll cause an interaction with people that are picnicking, saying, hey, just in case you didn't bring a bag, here's a bag and the dumpsters are located over there.
So it's that reminder.
Similar to what we the grounds crew did that several years ago for the fireworks day, because it was, people just left, trays of food and everything else. So they started handing out bags and it was well received. So we're gonna try that, and that'll initiate a lot of staff interaction with the public, which is what we want. So the public gets to know the staff gets to know the public that is routinely down.
Yeah, I think the word travels pretty quickly, too,
Yes.
once you start doing that. I think
Yes.
That's hugely helpful.
We're hoping.
Yeah.
So,
Try it.
just in terms of process then, so the thought would be we would award the contract to Schweitzer, they were the lowest bidder on the non-downtown piece. And then, I talked, and I don't know if Stacy's on this, originally we had talked about using American Rescue Plan funds. It's questionable if this would qualify. So I think what we want to do instead is do a special appropriation with the idea that if we can reimburse from American Rescue Plan funds, if once we learn, we will. And because we have funds in the account budgeted, I guess we only need $18,000, I think it sounds like, in order to purchase the big bellies, right? Is that the case? Because the total cost was like $30,000, but we had savings in the trash account.
In the trash.
Right? So we're gonna apply the savings in the trash account and then just go for a special appropriation for another $18,000. Because these things take like 6 weeks to get to, right? So we might not get it until August, but in the meantime, the guys feel confident that they can still get down there and get things taken care of. So, so that is, kind of moves us on to item 12 to talk about the actual contract award. And then I would actually move to open the agenda and add really item 12B, right, or 11B, which would be to discuss and take action to approve a special appropriation request for the Regional Recreation Department, the amount of $18,000 to fund 6 big belly trash receptacles and pads in the downtown business area. So, I think we vote on the okay, so,
The agenda first.
okay.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all in favor of opening the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so now, I'd like to make a motion to approve a special appropriation request from the Beach and Recreation Department in the amount of $18,000 to fund 6 big belly trash receptacles and pads in the downtown business area. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, any more discussion on that? Because I don't know, Bruce or Aaron or anybody have more questions about, it seems like a good plan. Everybody's good with it? Well, no, I mean, Bruce hadn't asked any questions, he usually, you did ask questions. Bruce always has questions, so he's quiet.
No, I mean, I think that we're on the right track here. This is such a chronic quality of life conversation for us in town. And I think Aaron was right to bring in the surf club. We just haven't been successful relying on outside vendors for this. So I think we really are forced to look internally towards a solution and to think about it from a quality of life perspective and not just a pure expense Because it is really disheartening to be downtown and see the trash overflowing, or to be at the surf club and see trash blowing around. And, I think it's time for us to just take that over.
Scott, I had a question. Statistically or experientially, is the amount of trash we're collecting going up, going down, about the same?
It's about the same. I mean, downtown definitely more.
Why do you think that is?
Well, people were with the pandemic, everybody's doing takeout.
Which is why I think this qualifies for
So
the
it's-
masculine months.
Yeah,
It is
all
directly
got
related to COVID.
It all got
But,
concentrated, people hanging out, trying to have some semblance of regular life. And
Are we, the public, any more conscientious about using the trash barrels?
I don't know. In all honesty, it's just, I mean, you look at the downtown in some aspects, and one is full, and they still try to jam something in that when 40 feet down the road, in front of another store, it's empty. So this is where I want to put my trash, but don't look for an alternate area. Because as Peggy alluded to, we have, what did I say, 15?
I think it was
Same.
17. I thought it
15 to
was.
17 of those, the flower box ones, plus the big bellies. And some of them, they're empty. Yet you have some concentrated areas, but even with those concentrated areas, 50 feet away is one bin that's empty. I don't know.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that also what's good about our people taking this over is they will have experience to tell us how to fix some of these problems too.
Where are the hot spots?
Right, and then how do we address it? So, and I think these contractor things are the way to go, because it just really helps get ahead of it. So I guess all in favor then of approving the special appropriation, say aye. Aye. Okay, great. So we got special appropriation. Then number 12 would be discuss and take action to approve awarding the bid for refuse and waste removal to Schweitzer Hometown Waste. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and then the amount in this contract, did we get the final amount? It was like 42,000, what was it?
47, right, Scott?
47.
47, okay.
And then I did ask him for the second year.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten that back yet, because I want to try to make it coincide, because we went for the 1 year, but Billy's still got 2 years on the school contract. So I wanted to get this year and then next year, so then when we go out to bid again, it'll be Board of Ed side and town side, the same.
So should we add on this to that I would approve the final contract, because right now we don't have the actual.
I don't know what the increase would be.
Lauren, how would we handle that, just so I'm authorized to sign the final?
So the final official motion will be to approve awarding the bid for refuse and waste removal to Schweitzer / Hometown Waste in the amount of $47,000 for a 1-year term, and to authorize the first select woman to sign the same.
Okay, so we're just doing, but what if they come back with the second? We'd have to vote on that again.
Yeah, you'd have to go ahead and have a dollar amount.
So moved as amended.
Okay,
Which
all in,
hopefully will have it by the next.
all right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great, all right, so that'll come back as we get more detail, but, okay, item number 13 is discuss establishment of potential ethics committee. So this has been kind of a standing topic that we've talked about, and Aaron and I have done a little bit of work on this. I think there's just been some time commitment constraints for both of us. But we did have the opportunity to meet with the chair and vice chair of Guilford's ethics board and had a really good conversation. We also have a tremendous amount of research that Lauren did about what other communities are. We have this huge spreadsheet. And I think we're gonna set up one more call with probably the town of Orange, just like we heard good things about their ethics commission. And so really, you know, there was a couple of takeaways. I think we'll be ready to come to the board at our next meeting with a proposal, because when I read what we have that was done back in 2010 or 29, and then what we learned from Guilford, I think it's just really making some modifications to that. Some things that I thought were very interesting were that, first of all, most of the commission is used as board and commission members, just vetting conflicts of interest. Like, so it's more proactive. Boards and commission members just wanting to make sure that it's okay they vote on something. And so they go and they give an opinion by the commission. They had not seen the politicization of that or kind of, you know, negative consequences. They pretty much had very little issues with people submitting requests to their board. The other thing is everything's done in confidential through executive session. So there's some, at least to get rid of some of the frivolous stuff, you know, that's out there that maybe to damage people's reputations or whatever. It was, I think, handled in executive session. What was interesting, the composition of their board, and I would recommend this for ours as well, is they had 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, and 1 unaffiliated, whereas ours was recommending actually a majority, I think, for one party. So this has no party majority. And so it's purely bipartisan with 1 unaffiliated, and it's term limited, and all of the Guilford boards and commissions are term limited to 2 terms, which I think is a great idea, and I made the suggestion in the charter review to talk about that. So it allows replenishment and refreshment of boards if you can keep them populated, obviously. So that's and then, you know, they had some good definitions on like what is a conflict of interest. And so I think there's some things in our document we can kind of tighten up in the definitional area. And they make everybody sign the ethics policy. All employees, contractors, vendors, it's actually at the bottom of all their purchase orders. And so there's this proactive validation. You know what the policy is, and you have to follow it. And I think, you know, both Aaron and I thought that was a great idea too. So there was some interesting takeaways there that we could incorporate into the document that we have. I don't know if you have more to add.
No, well, I just thought that they had some good best practices that we could adopt. So we asked them if they had any trouble populating the committee, which they said they hadn't, because that's always because
Get volunteers.
they need, is it twice?
No, quarterly. I
Or
think.
quarterly,
Yeah.
quarterly. So
Or
it's
as
not-
needed.
Or as needed, right.
Right.
So it's not an intense commitment unless something comes up. But, and I was happy to see that in their experience, the process hadn't been used, as Peggy had said, by people who are trying to make frivolous complaints against people. And there is a process by which that would sort of get dismissed. And if there was no merit to the claim. So I think that's important.
I'm curious too, like you mentioned submissions, like, so it was getting used, it sounds
Yeah.
like, so there were
Yeah.
submissions.
And it
into the-
has to be in writing. So
And
if
it has to be
somebody,
in writing,
if somebody says, you know, calls or says that they turn around and say to them, you have to follow the process, you have to put it in writing, which they said deters people from,
Do frivolous ones, yeah.
right, because we actually have to lay it out in writing. It makes people kind of take it seriously, more seriously.
And I think some of the processes that we had in the document would need to be updated for using email and things like that, figuring out a better way to do that. I think they're just modernize that because and how we would do that. I think for them, they go to the town clerk, I think, and then the town clerk then takes it and sends it to the chair. I can't remember, but we're
They
gonna
have
look at
their own clerk that supports them. Who
They-
supports them?
right. We learned that Guilford has a lot of clerks.
Yeah.
They have dedicated official clerks. I think 10 that support a lot of different boards and commissions. So they do have a lot more resources, which is something that our board, I think, needs to talk about at one point, because it's a tremendous amount of work to, you know, track, support all these boards and commissions. And Guilford has a lot more resources dedicated to that. So I think it was a very good discussion. We'll hope maybe get some other interesting takeaways from a conversation with Orange, and then I think just make some amendments to what was a really good start, you know, 10 years ago for Madison. And then we could bring a proposal at our next meeting,
Okay.
you know, and then kick it around and then maybe vote on it in July.
Can I ask one more question just about submissions while it's on my brain? So what about anonymous submissions? Is that allowed?
I think we have
Because
to have your name.
there's always this feeling, I think, of bringing some of this stuff forward in an anonymous format versus a named format. And I don't know if that's something that we can explore with some of these other organizations, but
I think they require you have to put your name to it now, but it's also, it is confidential. So,
because it's going into executive session.
yeah, so,
Okay.
but it makes the person think twice. If they're gonna make an accusation, it's not gonna be public record, the accusation, unless I think there is a directive to follow up on, right? And, but like I said, most of this is, there were a few little employee things, I think they said in the beginning, and they said having the policy, you know, making employees sign the policy, it kind of really made people think again
Yeah.
about stuff. And they said, one example they used is like, oh, somebody taking home some chairs from Parks and Rec for their personal party, you know, just to use at home for the weekend for a party, little simple things like that, they, you know, people, it's kind of that gray area, you know, but now you've got a policy, you've signed on to a policy, you know that there are consequences to violate the policy. And then they said it was a lot more just vetting, you know, of people on boards, including the first selectman office. So, you know, I've had to go to council to get an opinion. So it'd be nice to just, you know, submit it to the committee and get an opinion. So any board member could do that. And that's how it's most actively used, is board and commission members just making sure, is this cool if I vote on this? You know, does it make sense? This is kind of a relationship I have. And so it's used in good faith as a positive thing. So that was the takeaway.
And it feels fine.
That's
It feels really constructive in the sense that we're putting the ethical terminology, I think, out more in the public's eye. You know, so it's making it more commonplace for us to discuss ethical issues. I think, you know, to date, it's sort of been tucked away and we haven't had an opportunity or a venue maybe to express those kind of issues. So I think this would put it in people's minds, I think, more in the forefront.
I think,
So I think it's a good thing.
yeah, I think it just makes makes more transparency so that,
No doubt, yeah.
you know, it takes the burden off the individual, to be honest, too,
Yeah.
right? So it provides an avenue that you can just say, well, you know, I'll vet this to the ethics committee and, you know, let them make that decision about what they think is appropriate. So, so any other questions on that? Like I said, this will be, we'll bring something more detailed and kind of an initial proposal at the next meeting. Okay, great, all right. Next item is discuss and take action to approve a special appropriation request from Public Works Department to fund additional highway paving.
So moved.
Doesn't have the actual, okay. Second,
Second.
okay, great. So this doesn't have the actual amount in it. Do we need to amend it with the amount? Maybe let John, if you want to talk about this, is following on our discussion about paving. John's here, sorry, I'm like, over here in front of me. So we talked about the, you know, new paving study and the need to just get some additional funding so we can continue with our road paving this year, because we have two big bridge projects that need to get done. And so that was sucking up a lot of the resources out of those accounts. We did find out on Thursday that we did get the grant from the state for the two bridges, so which they do a 50% match. So that helps us. But after a lot of detailed analysis, I think John concluded we still think we'd be better served to get this. I think you're recommending $600,000, right? As a
Right.
special appropriation of the account. So do you want to talk through
Sure.
that and did you want to show the
I get, there's a lot of detail in what I. looked
Yeah.
at,
you want to, yeah, if you just
but I
want to
can
kind
just
of walk
give
through
it-
the high level then?
Sure, yeah. So I mean, basically what it is the major road fund is used for paving, for road reconstruction, for bridges. Fortunately, bridges don't come up that often. But this year, we currently have two bridges that, one needs to be replaced entirely. The second bridge needs to be rehabilitated. And
And that's part of the CIP.
yes,
That's all in there.
It is in the CIP.
Yeah.
Correct. And
Where are these bridges?
one is on Garnet Park Road and the other is on Flintmark Road. So, you know, they've been inspected by the DOT and we hired a structural engineer to look at them. They need to be replaced immediately because they reached their life expectancy. There's issues with them. So, the CIP, when these bridges came up, the CIP program had to be scaled back. The road paving had to be scaled back considerably because the bridge cost that the structural engineer came up with, the estimate is $1.8 million for both bridges. Unfortunately, we just got the grant award last week, which pays 50% of that. So the net cost to the town is $900,000, $915,000 over the next 2 years. So the bridges are going to span fiscal year 21, 22, and 22, 23. What that does, unfortunately, is it's going to reduce the amount of road paving we can do. And so I looked at, you know, what would it take to maintain the current level that we've been paving, which has been about $1 million over each year since 2018, 19, 20, spent $1 million on paving. We're making some progress and going in the right direction in terms of bringing up the overall road surface rating of all roads in town. But if my concern is that if we slow down that progress or that momentum, things will kind of revert back to where they were.
So, and I think if I recall in the last meeting, you mentioned with the new road paving study, there was a couple roads that were in further deterioration than we thought. And so it cost more money they weren't fully reclaimed roads, right? But they were at a different status perhaps, and that costs more money than just a normal paving, right?
Right, so we have several roads that are in that category that are reclamation roads, which is costly.
And that kind of has eaten away at the funds in that account also this year. So you have the bridges and you have some of these more expensive reclamation projects hitting all at once. So if all the money goes to that, it doesn't leave much left over for just keeping a normal paving program going.
Right, so with the calculations I did and with the roads that we looked at, we're looking at the worst roads in town, really, in order to maintain that level of at least $1 million per over the next 2 years. We would need a special appropriation in the amount of $600,000 to spread out over the next 2 years to maintain that current level.
And I did actually talk to the Board of Finance chair about this as well, and generally supportive. Obviously, it would have to go for the board, but they're looking at all the different ways to use excess fund balance right now, and I have kind of stated this as an area I thought was worthy. So, you know, there's an openness to supporting this, although they haven't, and I kind of brought it to their attention at their last meeting, and so this would go to them next. But I think in speaking to Stacy, it was just, and John was wanted to get out in front of this because you want to get on the calendar for these contractors also. So to get this going now and get the appropriation in the Board of Finance's hands as soon as we could, it was recommended to do that.
I have a question. So putting aside the merits of the project, which I'm not questioning at all, from a process standpoint, so we got the grants, which was an unknown, right? So, but from a.
But we
process-
suspected them.
Right,
in
but
the
we
process.
Yeah,
we
we budgeted
suspected
for
them. But in the CIP process, how did is this just a matter of there wasn't enough money approved in that process, and so now we have to make it up for it otherwise, or did something happen that we didn't anticipate that required this additional spending? I'm just curious from like a high level, like planning kind
Right,
of.
because in theory, we have extra money now.
Well, because in theory, you could say that if someone doesn't get, if a department doesn't get
money from CIP, they could just come do it this way. Right? Like,
Yeah, so the CIP,
planning, the planning wasn't done.
it was, we knew about this. I didn't know what the costs were until,
Yeah.
until the structural engineer provided the cost estimate for it. When I scaled back the paving program, we still have other operational accounts where we can do some paving with, so it's not that we're not paving any roads at all. So, if I answer your question, it's a good point. The fund is also used for bridges as well as paving. I became aware that we have this, there is some funding out there, so I'm just fighting for
Right.
trying to maintain.
So you're saying we need to make it more of a priority than maybe we had. Well, I think that the cost of the road reclamation was to necessarily expect when we budgeted for this 4 years ago, right? It's got this account, we had the paving study came back and said, hey, we got a couple of roads that really need significant work. So that's new, because that just happened in the fall, the new paving study. And then secondly, the bridge, we got more detailed cost estimates on the bridges. I mean, the reality is, I think going forward in CIP for these other, we should be breaking out. Like right now, road paving's got all these different accounts, and then the bridges kind of come out of that same account, but they don't come up as often, as you said. These should be one-offs, I think, pulled out and separated. Maybe the right way to have done it would be to just have the bridges separate as a special appropriation, because these are kind of one-offs for the 50% of the cost, right, for the 900. So I guess instead, he's looking at the whole pot and saying, in order for me to keep on our paving schedule, I need 600. So.
Right, maybe that's a better way of looking at it, is to apply the special appropriation tools.
For the match, for the bridges. So, I mean, this is just brainstorming now, but the idea was, let's try to get it all done and have enough money, right?
When I had done the CIP program for roads and bridges, I had also underestimated the amount that the bridges were going to cost. One was a rehabilitation, still has significant cost to it, so.
What was the dollar amount that was originally CIP?
I had 1.2 million for both bridges, and it's 1.8 million. Based
So there
on
you go,
more
600.
detail.
I think Aaron has asked the right question here. Aaron, I'm just gonna give you one person's opinion. I think our predecessor boards of selectmen and board of finance have never fully recognized how much we need to fund our bridges and roads account. It's the thing that seems to get cut first, the thing that we seem to be unable to fully fund. And I have been encouraged by some of the studies we've done about our roads and bridges. But I still have a sense that we're under reserving for the future in those accounts. And it's been a continuous problem over decades. This is nothing new. It's nothing especially current. It's a recognition. It's kind of the least glamorous account imaginable, and elected officials always seem to find an excuse to underfund it. So that's just my opinion. But I think you've asked the right question.
It's only because I've sat in hours and hours and hours of CIP.
Yeah.
So I have a vested interest in
Yeah,
understanding.
no, but you raise it, I agree with you, Aaron, in the sense that the CIP too, the intention there is planning. So I think that's the tricky part in this, is that we have spent a significant amount of time planning. And typically we would then drop things in year 5, not year 1. So I think that's where it.
Are there additional bridges being recognized by CIP at this point?
The county road one is on there, right?
And those are funded, so there's
Oh,
two bridges that are
yeah, she's not
underway
even counting
now, and which have grants for.
John, I think it would be very helpful just to assure the public that the bridges that we've been talking about this morning are still safe to use and still within their useful life.
Right, they're safe to use, but they've been identified as they need to be replaced. Correct.
Well, and I think this also highlights, though, we can plan, we can do as much planning as we want, but, you know, you make a cost estimate and then 5 years later, costs go up and
Right.
it's tough.
But
And,
if the planning
yeah.
process should tweak, I think we should keep on top of that because it just makes it better.
well, and that's what I'm saying, and
Things
maybe
that we can
it's
control, like
yeah.
your idea of separating out bridges. Because
separating it, but also maybe refreshing our cost estimates somehow every once in a while. Maybe we require, you know, every other year a refreshment, you know, that might help us keep ahead of it. Yeah, because 5 years makes a big difference. You put an escalator in there, don't you, usually? For CIP?
So the state bid comes out for paving each year, but then the unknown is the escalator that is in the state contract, and it's a function of the oil prices. So it's, we don't know, some years when the oil prices are high, the paving costs also go up. So,
So I guess then, what we're, you know, today, the idea was doing special appropriation into the Public Works highway paving account for $600,000. So I probably would need, can you read that motion? Because and here it doesn't have a dollar amount on the. Unless there's any more discussion. Okay.
Yeah, so the motion will just be to approve a special appropriation request from the Public Works Department in the amount of $600,000 to fund additional, do you want to say just to fund the major roads account, John?
yes.
Okay.
Oh,
So I will remake that motion. That's fine.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, great. All right. Thanks, John. And then I think it would be for the Board of Finance, I think just to some of the details, clean it up and simple so they understand the accounts and all that you're talking about. And actually just that one fact, you estimated at 1.1, 1.2, and it was 1.8. There you go. Right. So that helps explain too, I think, the dollar amount. So, okay, great. All right. Moving on to review update on possible changes to the town floodplain ordinance.
So I know you're recused in this one, so I will take over at this point. So thank you, Bill. We are in the process of working with our town attorney on a response to a series of questions, and Bruce and I are going to spend hopefully some time with Peter Gelderman from our town attorney's office later this week or early next week to listen to their thoughts around a series of questions that we have asked to make sure that we really have our best understanding of what we need to be able to do here in relationship to the town floodplain ordinance. So I think at this point, what I would ask is that we table this conversation until Bruce and I have an opportunity to meet with Peter, and we will come back with more information and hopefully a statement from our town attorney. Is that fair?
Yeah, I would add, Scott, that, to everybody interested in following this in town, we have been receiving all of your correspondence and taking it all very seriously. We're very focused on getting this right and presenting to the town something that we feel is fair and equitable and works. And we are continuing to do our diligence to make sure that that happens.
And we have not forgotten, by the way, about a second town hearing. We'll be doing that once we have a next pass at the town ordinance, but that is something that we obviously take very seriously, gaining the public input. And we are frankly not in a rush to do a decision here. We want to do what's right for the town and for our residents. So.
Okay, good. All right, good. All right, item number 16, can I get a motion to approve an amount of tax refunds of $1,478.90?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. Citizens' comments.
Janet Nicolini has her hand raised. I'll allow her to speak. Janet, you can go ahead and unmute.
Janet, you there? You just gotta unmute.
Yeah, sorry, my hand was raised for a while. I didn't realize it was still up, actually. I was waiting for the discussion on the flood ordinance.
We just tabled it.
Yeah, so yeah, that's why my hand was up. I just wanted to, I mean, I had sent all of you a letter, just, voicing my concerns about that, an email. So just wanted to make sure you all got that and, you're considering that effect on the homeowners if you do go forward with this recommendation of the Coastal Resiliency Committee.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Janet.
And I know
Okay,
your email too, so.
thank you.
Any other public comment?
Yep. 1 second. Margaret Zambrano is on. You can unmute yourself.
Oh, good morning. My name is Margaret Zambrano. I live at 870 Boston Post Road, and I just wanted to make sure that you folks are well aware of the blasting project that's going on next door to me and the possible dangers that it may bring to us homeowners. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I think everybody in town is aware of that project. But I appreciate your comments. Any other public comment?
No one else has their hand raised?
Okay, great. All right, well, I guess can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Yes.
Okay, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
All right, good, and under 2 hours.
Look at that.
Doing better. So, all right, great, thank you, everybody.
Bye.